are rocking and rolling. So today, you guys, we are talking about two things. We're going to be talking about parallelism, and then we're going to be talking about modifiers. Both of these concepts are, in my opinion, quite easy compared to the stuff we have been doing. But now that we know what verbals are, what they should look like in a sentence, we're going to be able to better identify parallel structure, and modifiers kind of go along with phrases, so it'll kind of go hand in hand here. These notes will also appear on your test tomorrow, okay? We'll talk through the notes, we'll do some practice, and then you guys have that extra practice packet to do tonight as well. So we're just going to dive right in here and hit the ground running. Parallelism, and make sure you're filling in your notes. Parallelism is the use of components in a sentence that are grammatically the same or similar in their construction, sound, meaning, or meter. What does that mean? Okay, here's how I like to think of parallelism. Every day, you pack your lunch. And every day, you put an apple in your lunch. So every day, you're like going, you're getting your lunch out, you reach in, you grab your juicy apple, and you crunch into it, and you're like, apple, delicious, my day is made. That's parallelism. But one day, your stinking sibling decides to switch out your apple for an orange. You reach into your lunchbox and you pull out this orange on a Tuesday and you're like, what the heck? I can't bite into this thing. So then you start trying to peel it and you got orange juice trickling down your arm and it's a sticky mess and you're like, day ruined. And it throws off your entire day. That's what happens when we do not have parallel structure in a sentence. It throws off our entire sentence. So we need to make sure that we are doing our best to maintain parallel structure throughout all of our sentences because it's going to give our writing that feeling of consistency. We don't want our writing to ever feel inconsistent. Okay, it throws it off. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about parallelism. So we're going to talk about a few ways that parallelism errors can happen, and we're going to talk about how we can fix them, okay? So I have more notes. All right, so parallelism adds balance and rhythm to sentences, okay? It employs repetition. Parallelism happens and errors happen in a lot of ways, but usually, and this is the nice thing about parallelism errors, usually we can hear when something doesn't sound right. Now, I also want to mention, you guys have probably heard the word like parallel in a different class. What class would that be? In math. When we're talking about parallel in math, what are we talking about? We usually talk about parallelism in reference to what? Lines, right? If you just have one line, can you have parallelism in math? No. Why not? What do you need in order to have parallelism in math? Not just one line, but how many lines? At least two, right? Because when we're talking parallel, you have to have two things that can be parallel to each other. Okay, I'm not a math person. Am I explaining this right? I think this is right? Like your lines are parallel, and you can have two lines being parallel or more than two lines being parallel and on, right? But you have to have at least two. Well, the same thing goes for parallelism in English. So when we're talking parallelism, we have to have at least two items in the sentence that we're paralleling. So usually when we're doing parallelism, you're going to see like a list of items, at least two things that have to be parallel. But sometimes you'll see a whole list. So let's dive right into the errors here. Error number one is a part of speech. Okay, so whenever we're listing items in a sentence, Chance, you're doing a lot of talking today, bud. I need you to stop talking. Okay, we need to make sure that whenever we're listing items in a sentence, they all begin with the same part of speech. So here would be an example of an error. Trying desperately to find his keys, he looked in his bedroom, the sofa, and on the kitchen counter. So we've got a prepositional phrase, in his bedroom, we've got a noun, the sofa, and then we've got another prepositional phrase, on the counter. Okay, so we've got two prepositional phrases and one noun. The noun is our orange in our lunchbox. Okay, it doesn't fit the pattern. It's throwing off the sentence. So all we have to do to fix that is we have to take that noun and make it a prepositional phrase to make it the same as the other items in the sentence. So all we would do is we would change that to under the sofa. We add a preposition, making it a prep phrase. Then it fits with the parallel structure of the sentence. Does that kind of make sense? So you're just looking at your items in a series, your items that you're paralleling, and you're asking yourself, are these all the same? Grammatically, do they all kind of sound the same, look the same? Okay, and you need to make them all be the same if they're not. So that's the first error that we can fix. The next type of error you might find is an error in form. So same as with errors in parts of speech, when we use multiple verbals, again, we just finished talking about those verbals, right? Participles, gerunds, and infinitive. When you use multiple verbals in a sentence, you need to make sure they're all the same. So here would be an example of an error. Olympic athletes usually like practicing, competing, and to eat ice cream sandwiches. Bless you. What type of verbal are practicing and competing? Who remembers? Looks like verb, ends in ing, it's in the place of a noun. That means it's what kind of verbal? What? Yeah, the gerund. Oh my gosh, you guys, Marcus wasn't even here yesterday answering my question. Air 5, Marcus. Boom. Yes, way to go. Okay, they're gerunds. Well, what's this one? To eat. What type of verbal is to eat? To followed by verb. Functioning as a noun in a sentence. To eat is a what? Logan. Remember? Ashton, do you remember?
Exactly.
We literally just talked about it yesterday. Oh, I'm raging so hard right now. What kind of verbal is it? The to, followed by a verb. Chance, what is it?
In inverted or whatever it's called.
An infinitive. Okay, close enough. It's an infinitive. So we have a gerund, and an infinitive. Not right. Okay, we need to fix that infinitive to make it a gerund. So here's how we would do it. We just change it to a gerund, eating, instead of to eat. Then the sentence flows. Olympic athletes usually like practicing, competing, and eating ice cream sandwiches. Yay, parallelism. All right, the next type of error you might see is an error in tense. So when you're using multiple verbs in a sentence, you want to make sure they're all in the same tense to maintain parallel structure. So you don't want a combination of tenses like past tense and present tense. Okay, we need to be consistent. So here would be an example of an error. Shane ate the pizza, wiped his lips, and burping with contentment. We have a past tense, and then a present participle. And it doesn't work. And it probably sounds really wrong too. Hopefully it does. So all we would have to do is fix the present participle to be past tense. So here would be the corrected. Shane ate the pizza, wiped his lips, and burped with contentment. We just change that burping to the past tense verb. And then we're good to go. All right, the next kind of error you're going to see is an error in number. So when we list items in a sentence, all of the items either need to be singular or they need to be plural, not a combination of the two. So here would be an example of an error. Public transit such as buses or a train can help reduce air population. So in that example, we've got a plural and then we've got a singular. Okay, that's not parallel. We need it consistent. So all we have to do is change one or the other. So we're going to change the singular to a plural and make it train. Okay, then we've got all plurals in that sentence and we're good to go. Is this making sense so far? Most parallelism errors are really easy to hear. It's fixing them that can sometimes get a little tricky, but we're going to be practicing with that. Now there's one more type of parallelism error that you can have that's a little bit different than the ones we've looked at, and that's what's called an error in subject matter. Okay, when we have an error in subject matter, our sentence doesn't make sense based on what the subject of the sentence is. So for example, this would be an error. He decided to cover the gown in sequins and have a steak for dinner. What the heck does having a steak for dinner have to do with covering a gown in sequins? Okay, there's an error in subject matter there, right? The two do not equate. We wouldn't automatically think, oh yay, we're covering a gown in sequence, that means we're having a steak for dinner. Like, I don't think that's the logical thought process of any normal human being. So all we would have to do is we would have to add some sort of connection that leads us to why we're having a steak dinner based on the fact that we're covering a gown in sequence. So we could fix it by doing this. He decided to cover the gown in sequence and as a reward have a steak for dinner. Okay, now that sentence makes sense, right? Because it's giving us a logical explanation as to how we got from point A, covering a gown in sequence, to point B, having a steak for dinner. You guys with me on that? Whew. All right, we're going to do some practice. So what I want you to do in this sentence is I want you to take the italicized portion of the sentence. She is thinking about staying home. Okay, and I need you to rewrite that portion so that it's parallel with the rest of the sentence. And you guys don't have to type the whole sentence out if you don't want to. You can just rewrite the italicized portion. And we just want to make sure the italicized portion is parallel to the rest of the sentence. Okay, now I will tell you that this one is tricky. So, I'm going to pause you and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is we have to figure out where our parallelism is, right? So Simone thinks she will either go to the movies or she is thinking about staying home. So go is functioning as our verb, okay? So that's our first item. That's where our first item starts. It starts after the conjunction either. So go to the movies is our first item. We've got a verb followed by what? What's to the movies? A prepositional phrase. Okay, so all you have to do is when you're looking at a sentence, you have to figure out, okay, well, where are the items in the series? Well, our first item in this series is go to the movies. It's a verb followed by a prepositional phrase. So what pattern should our second item in the series follow? If our first item is a verb followed by a prepositional phrase, Lathan, what do you think our second item in the series should be to match? What part of speech should it be? What? And. So if our first item is a verb followed by a prepositional phrase, what should our second one be, Tate? A verb and a prepositional phrase. Most of us did not do that. Okay? So how could we rewrite this italicized portion to be a verb followed by a prepositional phrase? See if anybody got it. Most of us got close, but we're missing that preposition. Any ideas? How can we fix it? What's our verb? Let's just start with our verb. What verb is happening here in this italicized portion? Santi, what do you think? What? What verb? What action is this person doing? Nope. Pick the next one. Not a verb. Jamie, help him out. Stay. Okay, so our verb has to be stay, right? That's the action that's happening here. She's thinking about staying home. Okay, we could have thinking, but then we've got a lot of extra stuff. So let's just do stay. Where is she staying? That looks really nice, Kelly. Where is she staying? Patty Freeman. At home. So Simone thinks she will either go to the movies or stay at home. Verb, prepositional phrase. Verb, prepositional phrase. Do you see how that's parallel? Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions on that? Okay. It has to be at home, because if you just have home, that was a really good question. Because if you just have home, you're missing that preposition. So since our first one is a verb prepositional phrase, we have to make sure our second one is verb prepositional phrase. So most of you guys said stay home. But you're missing the at. You're missing the preposition to make it a prepositional phrase. So you were like literally this close. Oh, so close. Great question. Any other clarification questions on that? Okay, let's try another one. So this one's a little easier. We're just changing taking a walk. So just type what we would change taking a walk to make this sentence parallel. Let's try to finish in 5. Beautiful, guys. This one was a little bit easier, wasn't it? Okay, because where are our parallel items? What are we paralleling in this sentence? Creighton, what are we paralleling here? Well, just give me the words. Taking a walk, and what's it paralleling itself with? Jogging. Okay, so this is where we're looking for our parallel structure. Well, what part of speech is jogging? Who remembers? How's jogging functioning? Malachi? Oh, I thought that was a hand raise. Was that not a hand raise? It's a gerund! Yes, it's a verb that ends in ing functioning as a noun of a sentence. It's a gerund. Beautiful job. So jogging needs to be parallel with another gerund. So, who am I going to pick on? Diana, how would we make taking a walk a gerund? Just change it to walking, right? The verb ending in ing in place of a noun, we got to change it to a gerund. So jogging and walking. That one was a little easier, wasn't it? All right, let's try this one. So we are changing students that are rowdy. How would we change that to make the structure parallel? Let's take about 5 more seconds to finish up. All right, looking really, really good out there, you guys. Layton, why am I not getting any responses from you? What you doing? like the third one, I haven't gotten a response. Are you on Paradox? Are you typing things? We need to type some things. I'll wait. There you go, Lathan. Be confident in yourself. Okay. Most of us got this right. What are we paralleling in this sentence? What items do we have to have be the same? Ben.
Greek terms.
Yep.
Uninterested instructors.
Yep. And then our third one. Beautiful. Okay, so guys, all we have to do is look at the pattern of the first two. Okay, what do we have as our first word in our first two items? What part of speech? Peyton. Greek and uninterested.
Oh,
Adjectives, and then Peyton, fraternities and instructors are what? Now, so we want to follow that same pattern in our third item, which most of you got, right? The adjective is rowdy, and then the noun is students. So we should just have rowdy students right there. Great job. Okay, let's try one more. Oh, this one you're underlining. Oh, I didn't even read the instructions. You guys are so good. So where is the error? Okay, this is looking really, really good. So most of us identified the error, right? We have a list of items. Our list is selfish, impatient, and she is not a kind person. Well, which one doesn't fit the pattern? I want you to show me on your fingers. Is it the first one selfish, the second one impatient, or the third one and she is not a kind person? Which one doesn't fit? Yeah, it's the third one. So that's where our error is, right? She is not a kind person does not fit the pattern of the first two. So how could we change it? Paige. Even more than that. We have to rewrite this whole thing. She is not a kind person to what? Look at the pattern of the other two. Single word, single word. What's our single word we could use then? Unkind. Boom. Fixed. All right, you know what? Since these ones are different, let's just try one more. So again, find the error, and I want you guys to see if maybe you can fix it. Figure out what it should change to. Okay, looking really good. It looks like most of us were able to identify the error. So here we have two items being compared, right? To feed the dog and bringing in the mail. Well, you could really identify either of those as not being correct, but most of you identified bringing in the mail, which I would have, well, you could go either way. No, that one's the incorrect one. Never mind. Because of this, I have to. Bringing in the mail is incorrect. Now, the fix for this one is tricky and complicated. If you said bring in the mail, that's fine. But technically, this one is an infinitive followed by a noun. So technically, we should have an infinitive followed by a noun there, so we should say get the mail, which is true. Okay, are we feeling okay on parallelism? Can we move on? We good? Any questions? Okay, your worksheet tonight will give you a lot of extra practice as well. That'll be super duper helpful. But we're going to move on and we're going to talk about modifiers next. So if you guys want to go back to your notes, make sure you're filling in the notes for the modifiers. So what the heck is a modifier? A modifier is a word or more words that describes another word or word group in a sentence. So adjectives and adverbs, they're modifiers. Ready? Remember, I always ask you the question, what is this word modifying in the sentence? Okay, because they're modifiers. But you can also have groups of words functioning as a modifier. So errors occur when modifiers are misplaced or dangling. Okay, misplaced or dangling. And we're going to talk about both of them, what they look like, and how we fix them. You guys believe my hair used to be that long? That's like my old Bitmoji. Like 2 years ago. You see like down to here, it's crazy long. Remember that?
It does seem like a while ago.
I know. It was for my wedding. I grew it out and then I chopped it all off after. I was sick of it. But now I want it back. Alright. We're going to first start by talking misplaced modifiers. So a misplaced modifier is a modifier that's placed incorrectly in the sentence so that it seems to describe a word that it was not intended to describe. So here is an example of that. The robin built a nest at the back of our house of grass and string. Of grass and string is our prepositional phrase modifier. But the way that it's placed in this sentence is making it seem like the house is built of grass and string. But what do we think is actually built of grass and string in this sentence? Probably the nest, right? I would hope that your house is not built of grass and string. I mean, there are houses built of grass and string in the world, right? But in South Dakota, where the winds are whipping at like 30 miles per hour, like yesterday and today, okay, that would be a problem. That's like something out of Little Red Riding Hood, right? The big bad wolf blowing the house down. Okay, so to fix this error, all that we have to do is we have to move the modifier as close as possible to the word that it's actually modifying. So we would want to make sure that we move of grass and string as close to nest as we can to make it clear that the nest is the one made of grass and string, not the house. So here's how we could fix that. The robin built a nest of grass and string at the back of our house. That kind of makes sense? So really fixing modifier errors like this is super easy. You just have to move the group of words next to the word that's being modified. Okay, now sometimes you're going to have single word misplaced modifiers. So certain single word modifiers, like almost, only, nearly, and even, what they do is they limit the word they modify, and generally they should come before the word that they're limiting, not after it, or not later in the sentence, but directly before. So if these words are placed elsewhere in the sentence, it changes the sentence's meaning, which is why it's really important that you get these 4 words placed correctly. So here would be an example of an error. Christy almost sneezed 15 times last evening. By having her almost there, it's implying that she almost started sneezing, but didn't quite get there. It would have been like one of these things, like, okay. That's what that sentence is saying. Okay, but because we have that 15 times there, okay, that means that we probably want our almost next to 15 times, because she probably sneezed. And she was probably sneezing a lot, like so much that she almost got to 15 sneezes, but not quite. So all we would have to do is move that word almost. So here would be the correction. Christy sneezed almost 15 times last night. What that sentence is saying is that something like this happened. Okay. Totally different, right? They're totally different. Also, have you guys ever met anybody that sneezes like that? It's hilarious.
For what?
I have a student that sneezes like that, and it's a funny thing. We always count his sneezes every time he sneezes. Peter Benson. Peter Benson. He's a junior. It's pretty funny. Dan? Okay. Now, on to the next error that we can have with modifiers, a dangling modifier. Well, what the heck? That sounds scary. So, unlike a misplaced modifier, a dangling modifier occurs when a modifier or a group of words does not have another word in the sentence to describe. Then it's dangling. Okay, so usually these types of modifiers will begin a sentence like this. Sitting in the dentist's chair, the sound of the drill awakened Larry's old fears. Well, guess what, you guys? We don't know who's sitting in the dentist's chair. There is no noun that group of words can modify. And you're probably looking at that sentence and you're like, well, obviously it was Larry. Yeah, I mean, you're right, okay, but the way Larry's written here is not a noun, it's what? Possessives are always what part of speech? Remember. You guys are making me feel like a bad teacher. We definitely talked about this like 100 times. Creighton. Thanks, Creighton. You're the best. Okay, possessives are always adjectives. So really, in this sentence, we have no modifier to describe. This sentence implies that the sound is sitting in the dentist's chair. Well, a sound can't sit. A sound doesn't have a physical body. So all we have to do to fix this is, actually there's two possible ways to fix this. So way number one is that after the dangling modifier, we just write the word that it's meant to describe, and then we revise the sentence as needed. So if, again, here's our error, all we have to do is add the word Larry after that introduction phrase. So sitting in the dentist's chair, Larry found that the sound of the drill awakened his old fears. So if we put Larry there, we just have to change a couple of the words of the sentence to make it make sense and flow. But now this set of words has a specific person it's describing. Okay? Now correction number 2 is that you can add a subject and a verb to the opening word group, and then again just revise the sentence as necessary. So you can change that opening phrase to an opening clause instead. So here's what this would look like. So there's the error, and here's our fix. As Larry was sitting in the dentist's chair, the sound of the drill awakened his old fears. So we add the word Larry and a verb to that opening phrase, and then it's good to go. Does that make sense? Pretty straightforward, right? Nothing too terribly complicated. Like I said, parallelism and modifiers, they're really just kind of more common sense rules than anything. But sometimes if we're not aware of the rule, it's hard to be aware of it in our own writing. So now that you guys are aware of the errors, you should be able to fix any errors that you make in your own writing. Yes, Miguel? Yeah, sorry. Did I go too fast? Any questions on parallelism or modifiers? Feel like you got it? Feel like you can do it on the test tomorrow? Now the good news is that on the test tomorrow, with your parallelism, it's all going to be multiple choice. Okay, so you will have a couple different sentences to choose from, and you will have to choose the one that uses parallelism correctly. The modifier errors portion of your test tomorrow, you're going to get a sentence with a modifier error, and you're going to have to rewrite it correctly. So it's going to be important that you know the rules here, and there are only 3 rules, right? If you have a misplaced modifier, you just need to place it next to the word it's modifying. If you have a dangling modifier, you either need to add the word it's modifying after the comma, or you need to add the word it's modifying and a verb to the opening phrase. Okay? All right, we are going to do some practice with that. So what I want you to do is I want you to rewrite this sentence and fix the modifier error. So see if you can find where the error is and fix it. take about 5 more seconds to finish. What's going on back there, Aiden? You don't know? Okay. I'm going to take a guess. Well, you know there's error, right? So just look at the sentence and ask yourself, okay, where is the modifier error? Where's the group of words that is incorrectly modifying another word in the sentence? So just look at what all of the words are next to and does it make sense for that to be next to the word it is? All right, looking pretty good overall. So let's talk about this. So Aiden, what do you think? I'm going to pick on you. Okay, but I know you can do it. Is there any group of words in this sentence that doesn't make sense where it is? Yeah, I knew you could do it. Okay, which Kim wrote doesn't make sense because where those set of words is, it's saying that the office is what Kim wrote. How can you write an office unless it's like an episode of The Office? And then I'm really impressed with Kim and I want to meet her. Okay, but it doesn't work in this sentence. What is Kim writing in this sentence, Aiden? The note. Okay, so how do we fix it? What should we do with this group of words? Aiden! I knew you could do it! Okay, I knew you could do it. So all we have to do here is we have to say, take the note which Kim wrote to Mr. Henderson's office. And most of you made that fix. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Yes. Ooh, would you add commas is what Paige asked. You could, okay? It's up to you whether you think it's essential information. So if you guys think that which Kim wrote is not essential to us understanding the context of the sentence, then you would surround it by commas. If you think it is important to us understanding the sentence, you would leave it as is. You could just take it and plop it after note. So it's kind of up to you, kind of up to the context of the sentence. Either would be fine in this example. Great question. Any other questions? You're like on fire with questions today, I just keep you for next period too. All right, let's try this one. Okay, let's take about 5 more seconds to finish. Okay, so the way that the sentence is written now, Carrie nearly has 60 freckles on her face. It's like she almost has freckles, but she doesn't quite have any freckles at all. Right? Well, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So all you guys have to do is move one word here. Tate, which word are we moving and where are we moving it to? Okay, so you were flipping these two words, right? Nearly is the word that's in the wrong spot. Because we want to say Carrie has nearly 60 freckles. Like she has so many freckles that it's almost 60. Like I counted and I got really close to counting 60 freckles on her face. Not that she almost has freckles but doesn't quite have freckles. Right? Like maybe she has a shadow on the freckle. That's what this sentence is saying. But if we move the nearly here, then it says girl has a lot of freckles. Like nearly 60 of them. Does that make sense? Most of you got that one right. Try this one. Now I will tell you that this one is going to be one that you kind of have to rewrite quite a bit to make it make sense. Okay, this one's a little bit trickier. I see you guys kind of struggling with this one. So I'm going to put a pause on you, okay? And we're just going to talk about it. What type of modifier error do we have here? We have two options. We can either have a misplaced modifier or a dangling modifier. What's the error we have here? Kylie, what do you think? It's dangling. Kylie, can you explain why it's dangling? Oh, Kylie, that was beautiful. Okay, she said it's at the beginning of the sentence, there's a comma, and we don't really know what it's referring to, right? There's nothing in the sentence that reminded by a friend would be referring to. Well, we can use our intelligence, right? We can use the context of the sentence to figure out who's being reminded. Okay, so who's being reminded in this sentence? The person turning in their English paper late. And since this is written in first person, we could just say I, right? Okay, so I is the one that's being reminded by a friend. So we can fix a dangling modifier in two ways. The first way is that we could add the subject I and the verb here. I was reminded by a friend. And then we would have to change some of the wording. I was reminded by a friend, so I turned my English paper in late. Or we could add the subject after the comma. Reminded by a friend, comma, I turned my English paper in late. I think option 2 makes a little more sense, right? Sounds a little better. But that's how you fix the dangling modifier. Okay, you just have to kind of think through it. So I like that Kylie pointed out, okay, we have it starting the sentence with a comma. With dangling modifiers, you guys, you're going to have a phrase starting the sentence with a comma. And you just have to look and see, okay, well, does that phrase have anything that it's directly referring to or modifying? Yes, ma'am. Well, the friend, you're right, like the wording is a little weird, right? But because it works, the context of the sentence is implying that you only turned it in because your friend reminded you. But it just happened to be late. But I understand what you're saying. So you could add more words if you wanted to clarify the meaning of that. Like I think I know what you're saying. So like, because my friend reminded me to turn it in, I turned in my English paper, but it was late. Does that make more sense? Or something like that. I know, the sentence is worded weird. Let's try another one, okay? Try this one. See if you guys can fix this dangling modifier. I'm telling you right after that what it is. All right, this is looking a lot better. So again, our two fixes, this is our dangling modifier. Right now, it's sounding like tears are the ones that are touched by the movie. But it's not, right? It's I that is touched by the movie. So we can add I and a verb to that beginning phrase to make it a clause. So since I was touched by the movie, tears came to my eyes. I was touched by the movie, comma, so tears came to my eyes. Or we could add it after the comma. Touched by the movie, I started to get tears in my eyes. Okay? All right, what's your homework tonight, guys? All right, let me rephrase that. What's tomorrow, guys? Your test, Mason. Your test is tomorrow. Study for your test. I will post all of the answer keys after second period. Okay, they will all be posted for you. Yep. Hold it.